Okay, dear friends, a very good evening to all of you, and most welcome to our third and final day of the workshop on CBT. Yes, today, after having seen the other 2 days some theoretical background of CBT, today we are going to have a little more interactive sessions where our resource person Dr. Rajesh is going to take us into technical aspects of CBT, how to go about, how to practice this very effective tool in our effort of helping people heal. Okay, so he is going to introduce us into different techniques that we can employ in using this CBT as a therapeutic tool in the process. So, once again, welcome all of you. And then over to you, Dr. Rajesh, please.
Okay, thank you, Father Joshi. And welcome back again to the third day of our workshop on CBT. And very glad that you are all back. I know that most of you have been attending the diploma program with Father Joshi a few hours ago, and intellectually your brains are full, and yet you have come back. You have taken a refreshing time. Then you have come back for the third day of our CBT workshop. So welcome back again. And so today, as Father Joshi said, we have been looking at the cognitive distortions and the ABC model of identifying the thought patterns of CBT yesterday. And today we will be looking more into the practical elements. We don't have much time. I was asked by Father Joshi that it's better to conclude by 7 o'clock today. So I'll be looking into that as well.
We can go maybe like 7:15. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Thank you. And since we have the time restrictions, a lot of interactions, I don't know, but the most possible way, when I introduce certain techniques, if you have doubts, you can ask me, Dr. Father Joshi. We can interact in between and clarify your doubts in that one. So before we begin, let me ask you, as a follow-up of what we have seen yesterday, I had given you certain assignments. As we said, CBT, the central part of CBT is homework. So I had given you an assignment yesterday, how to track your thoughts and how to categorize into cognitive distortion. Can I have a few responses if you have done your exercise or not? Can you just, in the chat box, can you just mention whether you have at least tried working on that particular format, which we have seen. I have given you 2 assignments yesterday. So at least one, if you have worked, just can I have a few responses over there to begin with?
Yeah,
you can mention in the chat box.
Yeah.
Whether you get, I think I can't see any response there. So probably, should I conclude that you did not get to go back to that?
The thing is, I did it, but I'm not actually wanting to share the thought.
No, I don't want you to share the thought, but rather whether you were able to.
I was able to jot it down and get a better idea about things.
Okay. So yesterday, Father Joshi also had shared the PowerPoint, and so you were able to at least understand some category.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yes, Father.
So, okay. So kindly, just like 1 or 2 responses, whether what was the good insight that you received from yesterday's class. Can we have 2 minutes of time for that? Maybe 1 or 2 responses so that we will begin with today's session. It can be you can unmute and speak, or you can also, some of you can also use the chat box for that purpose. But you can unmute and speak, for everyone can get an interaction for that. If any particular insight you want to point out.
I'll say something, Father.
Yes, Anani sir.
I learned in depth the cognitive distortions that I undergo, especially I don't remember all the cognitive distortions, but especially catastrophizing, making the small problem look very big, and then overgeneralization of issues, and then especially I was impacted by how we apply a older experience to the present situation, and then we tend to not do anything at all, because just because I failed in something before, we don't attempt at all. So these are the three things I learned from cognitive distortions. It also gave me an insight of how much distortions I carry, and then I need to work on it. And I think if you are self-aware, most of these things we might be more aware of it and have some control over our life, I feel. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Anyone wants to share, or we will proceed? Just waiting for one more response if you have. If not, I will proceed. Just a humble, yes.
So yes, Father. So I too did it. I didn't write it obviously, but while you was telling, I could clearly see where I am doing the mistakes. Because we can. It was a kind of I was feeling that we are having an interaction in mind only. When you were telling that, I could see how possibly when negative thoughts will come after this in future, I can tackle them. What should I give to my brain? I was able to, So for me, entire yesterday's session was a, what you can say, eye-opening session kind of, and it was like that. No, we have the different thought also, and we can avoid this kind of a thing. So I did the homework, but all was in my mind only. So it was like that. So thank you so much for yesterday's session. Actually.
Okay. So thank you for those responses, Ajish, Anthony sir, and Shivani. And one humble piece of advice to all of you, many of us are counselors. This is what we look into. When we identify the cognitive distortions in clients, we also, many of you have suggested that it was a therapeutic session in one way or the other way, because it helped a lot of, in a reflective manner, we have looked into ourselves. So probably what I wanted to give a piece of information or advice in this regard as counselors, there can be sometimes when a client shares the problem with us, there can be sometimes these cognitive distortions happen to us as therapists. Sometimes we may not understand the problem between the lines. We have to read everything in between the lines. So we should not magnify a problem, or we should not, overgeneralize a problem, or we should not see things in black and white. We should be able to realistically evaluate a client who is sitting in front of you, or a person who is seeking help from you. So that is a peaceful information, because this can also happen to a therapist in one way or the other way. So we must also be aware that we have to overcome these cognitive distortion when we are using the techniques of CBT, as well as in giving counseling and helping people. So that is the humble advice that I want to give you, and then we'll move on with today's topic. Anything you need clarity more to ask today on any concept? Can you see that? Can you see my screen? I hope you can see my screen. Can anyone respond? Father Dr. Joshi?
Yes, Father.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we can.
Okay. So today we will be talking about mainly about the techniques. But before that, I just want to give you a glimpse on the stages of CBT, because many of you may have a confusion how to conduct a CBT session. So I just want to, in brief, even though the slides are bit in a large, I am not going to everything in detail, but I'm going to give you a glimpse on the stages of CBT, how the session of a CBT has to go ahead. So first of all, for any counseling session, whether we use CBT technique or anything, any counseling session, as I said, what we need to have is building a rapport with the client. Okay, forget about the preliminary stages that you have to take up. You will study all those things in the diploma course, or many of us are, as Father Joshi had referred to me, many of us are attending right now in the session. They have a background in psychology. So you know how to start and what are the preparations that we need to do in a counseling session. So initially, what we have to do is building up a rapport. The success of any counseling that relies on that alliance between that we create or that we develop between the client and the therapist. So imagine whether you are a professional psychologist or you are a person who is helping someone. You are a therapist in one way or the other way. And the person who is seeking help from you is a client in front of you. So, but you need to have an ethical rapport that you have to build up between the client and the therapist. That is the first and foremost stage where you have to do. Second stage, once you establish a good relationship in terms of a professional relationship between a counselor and the counselee, the next step is where the problem is presented. So that is the pattern that we follow in every counseling session. So whether it is, no matter it is CBT or whatever the counseling session is, so the second stage is where the problem is presented to the therapist. So what we have to make sure here, if the client is already established a good rapport, you have to allow the client to establish or to narrate the problem in its seriousness. So we know the session is short, so it should not be merely a talking therapy like in other therapies, but rather what you have to do, you have to have in mind the sessions are in short, so but you should not devalue the importance of the problem that are narrated by the client. Once you narrate the problem, then you have the ability, you have already the priority, you can ask the client. So these are the problems that you have narrated. So now, when we jot down these problems one by one, you can ask the client, what are the problems that we need to focus on, that we need to give priority, or that are disturbing you so much, which we have to address in the first stage. And once you are already charting out, giving the priority of the problems, then you can set a goal, then you can start working on it. And that is how the stage goes. Now, when you start working on a single problem, that's where I am going to explain the step one, which you have to do. Because the previous session I did not include, because that is part of every counseling therapy. And now we have to, the first step is, the problem is already narrated and you know how it is. And as a therapist, you must be able to identify the thoughts, the feeling and the behavioral part. Being a therapist, when the client is narrating to you, you should be able to identify the thought pattern, whether it is negative automatic thought or positive automatic thought. You must be able to read between the lines, and you must be able to understand what are the feelings aligned with the specific thought pattern and the behavior that is followed based on this one. We have spoken in detail all these matters in the first session. So this is the first step that you have to do. So I am not going in detail about that. You will have to understand what did you notice in your body. Okay, you may have to ask the client when the client is narrating a problem thought, or when the particular problem the client faced, you will have to ask the physical signs that are associated with that particular situation. Probably these slides will help you. I'm not going to read out everything because these slides will be given to you. Now, what did you do? What you did not do? Or how did you cope at that particular situation? When the problem is narrated, what did you particularly do at that moment? Or what you did not do? What did you try to avoid? So probably stayed at home, or did not talk to anyone, or avoid eye contact, or distracted yourself. You watch TV or radio or something, you kept you busy, some internet or something like that. So probably there can be a lot of things that you can explore into to understand these categories. Now we have to look 5 aspects of life experience situation. Where did it happen? When did it happen? Who were with you, or with whom these things happened, or what did actually happen then, or how did it happen? So you have all these situations to narrate or to explore into, or thoughts and images, what went through your mind at that particular time when you had a conflict with your colleague or with your boss. Okay, so what went through your mind, assessing the thought patterns of the client? What disturbed you? What particular thought came to you, and what was disturbing you at that moment? If you had those thoughts, images, or memories, what did you say or mean about or that particular situation? Whatever the client narrates, you must be able to establish a relationship between that narration and the personal point of view, point of the client. Meaning, you can ask a question, what does that mean to you? If the client explains something to you, you can ask to understand the relationship between that particular incident or event or situation or the conflict. What does that mean to you at that moment? Now you also have to look into the body and physical sensation. What did you notice? You have seen some of them in the previous slide, and you will be able to assess the mood and emotions of the client and the particular behavior that follows. So these 5 aspects of life experiences has to be evaluated from the point of the heading situation, thoughts, image, body, emotion, mood and emotion, and behavior. Now the second stage, once you identify the thought, emotion, and behavior, the second step is you have to understand the relation between, the link between thought, feeling, and behavior. So you must be able to connect. Being a therapist, you must be able to connect the thought. There is a disturbance coming in. Okay. So we have to understand the link between the thought, feeling, and the behavior. This is the second stage that you have to do when you enter into the CBT counseling session per se. So you have seen this, the cycle before. when you wake up in the morning, you think that there is no point. I'm going to mess up everything. So what, I feel depressed or tired. So what I do, I feel depressed and I stay in the bed. I don't want to get up. So this is a cycle. So we have to understand. Now we know what are the thoughts in me. I'm going to mess up everything. So when I feel that, when I make such kind of statement, when I think about I'm going to mess up everything, what is the feeling associated with? So I must be able to create. Being a therapist, I have to help the client to establish the relationship between these two. And then as a result, what behavior comes in. So this is the second stage in the CBT that we have to do. Okay, now the thoughts occur in depression. We spoke about it. I'm not going to explain it. In the third stage, what you have to do, making changes, or making changes in the sense, I told you, one of the major concepts in cognitive behavior therapy is the cognitive change. This cognitive change should happen in behavior as well as in thought. So now look at it. Change should happen. Change in the behavior. Changing what we normally do can greatly affect the way we feel and think. So if when I do something, when I have issues with somebody, or when somebody is coming to talk to me, I feel frustrated, I feel anxious, I don't feel happy with, comfortable with, then changing the way that I do. So I try to avoid the person probably. I try to encounter the person in order not to have any kind of conflict. So what I will do, I will just move away from him. So if I do that, if I am ready to change what I do normally in that situation, probably that can help the way that I feel and think about that particular situation. So what did I do, or what did I avoid doing? What automatic reactions did I have? What would people have seen me doing? So many questions that we can ask. Now let's ask a question. What could I have done differently? What would someone else have done in that particular situation? If I keep on asking this kind of question to myself in that particular situation, I will be able to find alternatives. So this is what, as a therapist, we have to do. Or personally, when we reflect about our own issues, we have to be able to make changes in the behavior that we do in order to make alterations in the feelings and the thoughts that we have. Now again, the stage 4, we have to make changes in the thought pattern. So we cannot stop our thoughts. We have seen yesterday, day before yesterday, thoughts may come and go. But we should not let the negative thoughts nest on your head or hair. So thoughts, we can't control them, but we can manage them. Remember what we have seen in the other classes. So what we have to do, we have to understand the automatic thoughts and schemas. Once we understand the thoughts that we experience, then it is easy to make the change. So the stage 4, that's where the thought patterns changes. Or we have to reconstruct or restructure a new thought pattern here. That is where step 4 happens. Now, this is an explanation for the automatic thoughts. We have seen it. So in detail, I'm not going to explain that. Now, look at this one. What do you see? Can you respond? Can someone respond? What do you see here? Can someone respond? What do you see on the screen?
2 people looking at each other.
Yes, 2 people looking at each other. Can anyone see something else?
2 faces.
What do you see? Apart from 2 faces, can anyone see something else there?
One head and something from top, it is going inside.
One head and something top is going inside. Okay. Okay, can I have different responses? If you can see something. More interactions, you can see, look at it, you will be able to see it.
A stand,
A star,
a stand.
there is a stand over there. Okay, you look at it in a stand perspective.
Father, this is look like a one bottle down, and then up there is some filter kind of thing.
Okay. When you see that, do you see the faces?
No, Father, I am not able to.
Yeah.
Not able to find.
Okay. So, is there any more responses? Any more responses?
Looks like a chalice.
Looks like a chalice. Okay. Yeah, more Christian perspective. Okay, in fact, when I look at it, I can see a chalice. If I look into a different perspective, I can also see two faces there. So actually, this illusion helps us to understand the different perspectives that we hold on to. Definitely you can, if from one perspective you look at it, you can see two faces. And at the middle, you can see in a white platform, if you look at it, that's the chalice. Looks like a chalice. And the black, if you just focus on concentrating on the black side only, then what will you see? You will see the human faces, two faces looking at each other. That's what you look at if you just focus on the black side. Am I right? Now look at this one. Again, another one illusion in front of you. What do you see here?
Carrot, rabbit,
There is rabbit
and duck, both.
and duck. Yeah, from one perspective, when you look at it, you will see it as a duck. And on the other perspective, when you look at it, you can see it as a rabbit. Now, what do you see here? You cannot identify? Are you all there?
Yes.
Palm Sunday, palm.
You can see a
Something on the
picture of
chat
a
box.
Palm Sunday. Yes. More response.
Somebody sitting on a horse.
Somebody sitting on a horse. Okay. Do you see other people over there? Just the horse
Yes.
alone?
No. Many people are there.
Many people are there. Okay. Do you see a face, a big face over there?
Yes, Father, big face is there. And in that face, nose is there. Then Jesus is sitting
Okay.
on the donkey.
Okay.
And many people are there.
Many people are there. How many of you can count the number of the people out there, the heads? Including the big face?
9, 10, no,
12 or something.
12 ആണ്.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Only 12?
14.
Yeah, there are 14, including a child over there. Can you see a child?
Yes, Father.
Okay,
Father,
so
yes.
there are 14 people. So why I wanted to tell you about this one. So look at from a different perspective. People have different perspectives looking at the same thing. We spoke in the first day. Okay, so we don't see the things as they are actually. We see things as we are. This is what we always have to keep in mind. So when I make a judgment about something, I make judgment from my perspective, not exactly from the real perspective probably. So we have to understand, only if we are able to understand this in a clear manner, because we are too much influenced by the core beliefs that we have, because our decisions are based on the core beliefs. Remember the core beliefs that I spoke in the beginning, which we have developed probably from our parents, from our peers, our family, society, or teachers, or whatever people who have influenced us from our early childhood. From then onwards, we have certain core beliefs which we were talking about in the initial session. Now, what we have to understand here, certain adaptive schemas and maladaptive schemas. Look at, I just want to give you some example. No matter what happens, I can manage somehow. Okay, whatever happens to me, I can manage somehow. That is a very adaptive thought. What could be the maladaptive here? If I choose to do something, I must succeed. Others can trust me, but if what is the opposite of it? I can never be comfortable around others. If I have a positive attitude, I feel that people respect me. But if I feel negative, if I minimize the things, even if I'm doing positive things, I minimize the positives, and what I do, I must be perfect to be accepted. If I make a mistake, others will make me or consider me as a fool. I won't be respected by other people. So if I prepare in advance, I usually do better. What is the maladaptive? No matter what I do, I won't succeed. So there are adaptive schemas that we can hold on to, at the same time maladaptive schemas. What as a therapist we have to do is, we have to help the client identify the maladaptive schemas that are underlined in explaining their narrations, or the negative thought patterns they hold on to, they own. So this is what exactly we have to do here. The core belief is, I am incompetent. If I am incompetent, what? I won't be able to do anything. So as a result, I will develop an automatic thought. So my automatic thought is always, as I said, where does the automatic thought come from? That is from the subconscious mind. Where does the subconscious mind, all the core beliefs are in the subconscious mind. These core beliefs are the template that I have in framing my thought pattern. So I can't do this. This is too hard. I will never learn all these things. So when I feel what? I am incompetent. That's my core belief. That's the template that I am pointing to. That is my point of reference to. So whenever I make a thought, my thought pattern is always based on the core belief that I have. All these things that I have already shared in the cognitive distortions, I am not going to explain that. So step 5, challenging our thoughts. Yesterday when we talked about the ABC model, we said about, we also have the A, B, C and D and E. Now, challenging our thoughts, this is where we dispute with the maladaptive thoughts. When I identify that when I identify in the client that the particular client is having a maladaptive thought in such a way that we have seen previous slide, what I have to do, I have to help the client, I have to ask questions in a way challenging the thought pattern of the client. This is a step 5. What? You look for evidences against the thoughts. When the client narrates a particular thought pattern, you have to look for evidences from the client. Can you give some evidences for what you have just told? So Socratic questions you will have to ask. There are Socratic questions of evidence. We will be dealing with that in the later stage. So that is where the challenging thought comes. And the stage 6 is reframe. What you do, once you dispute, then you have to restructure the thought pattern from the maladaptive to the adaptive ones. This is the stage that we follow in the CBT. So 6 stages we have seen, and as I said, in the initial stage, it is in the normal session of a counseling. Once you establish the rapport, once the problem is narrated, you have to follow this framework in order to make the session go on. Now I move on to suddenly any question with regard to this one, otherwise I'm going to move a bit fast into the techniques of CBT. So techniques of CBT, the first one. The cognitive behavioral therapy techniques are an interesting set of exercises that help modify a person's behavioral pattern. The behavioral patterns are modified in order to bring about positive changes in the personality. The first one, we target the maladaptive thought, the negative view about themselves, negative view about the world, and negative view about the future. We have seen the cognitive triad of the maladaptive thought, and that is the same thing explained here. Now we have to, secondly, we have to target the maladaptive thought pattern, now negative schemas that we have about. So in order to target about this cognitive maladaptive thoughts, what we have the cognitive techniques. The first one is cognitive restructuring. So look at this one. Replace or reframe the cognitive distortion. Once we have we know what is cognitive distortion now. When a client explains, as a therapist, we must be able to categorize into a particular cognitive distortion. And once we identify them, we must be able to, through the following techniques, we have to restructure the cognitive negative thoughts, negative or maladaptive thoughts, with more balanced or realistic thought. Now this is exactly where the change of cognitive distortions happens. What you have to do? You have to first recognize and get rid of the negative self-talk. You have to counter the negative thoughts with realistic positive self-talk. Thirdly, believe the positive self-talk. And finally, finding exception. Now to explain a bit on that one. First one, identify the maladaptive behavior or maladaptive thought pattern you have. And then you have to give a stop, a break to the negative self-talk. If you are keep on talking negative about you, you must be able to give a stop. And then you have to logically counter the negative thought. What? With what? With realistic, positive self-talk about you. We have seen, we have disqualified, we have seen a cognitive distortion called disqualifying the positives. When people disqualifying the positive or when people magnify the negative aspect, we must be able to counter that negative thought. And what? Once we start replacing with positive self-talk, we have to help the client to believe in the positive self-talk. And what? Finding exception. For that, what you have to do? There is something called find exceptions. Maybe that is a technique that you can use. Finding exception is also another technique that is used in cognitive restructuring. How do you find exception? You have to find exceptions in the past where you were able to succeed in life in such kind of similar situation. So you have to find such kind of exception in order to make you affirm that you are able to succeed or overcome this kind of situation. For example, in a similar situation where you were able to succeed in your past, that is what finding exception. So the first technique that you have to use is the cognitive restructuring. Second one is fear thermometer. We know what is a thermometer. Thermometer is used to measure your temperature. Now, it can be the fear thermometer. What you have to do, you have to ask the client, you have to, from a scale of 0 to 10, you must be able to measure the emotion of your client. And that is what this second technique is used. Every time, every session when the client comes to you, whatever the problem the client comes to you, you can use this psychothermometer for what? To measure the emotion the client undergoes. So normally, as you progress in your CBT counseling session, what helps you? The client will be able to feel better. And the experience, if for the first time when the client comes to you is having an emotional experience of 0.9, in the second session or the third session, you must be able to see the progress into 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and better. So that is the thermometer, measuring through psychothermometer, the fear thermometer concept. Thirdly, the thought record. We can start by identifying which thought is the hot thought. As I said in the beginning, the client comes with a lot of problems with you. And here what you have to do, you have to set the priorities. When you set the priorities, now what you have to ask the client, write down several thoughts from a recently distressing situation. When the client exposed a distressing situation, ask the client to write down several thoughts that are aligned with that particular situation. What did those thoughts say about you or mean to you? Of all those thoughts, which thought was the most one that made you upset? So we have to, as a client, as a therapist, we have to help the client to identify the hot thought. Now, again, you have to ask certain questions. Is this thought a fact or just a thought? What am I reacting to you? What meaning am I giving to this situation? Is there any other way looking at it? What advice would I give someone else in this particular situation? Is my reaction to this particular situation is proportion to the particular event or stress that I experience? So you can ask several questions to understand the thought record. Now, this is also can be given as a homework. When the client is in, not only the client is in front of you, but rather when after the counseling, when the client goes to the home environment, to the same situation, the client may experience the stressor. So you have to ask the client, when you encounter such a situation in the similar situation, write down the situation, the thought, the emotion, and the behavior. And also you have to ask the client to mention an alternate thought in that particular situation. So the client should be given a kind of homework where you periodically assess. When the client comes back to you in the next session, you must be able to go back, sit together with the client and evaluate this thought record card. So this is another technique that we use. Next one is thought stopping. Replace the racing thought. We have identified the hot thought. Now what we have to do? We have to stop. Give a stop for thought stopping. Replace the racing thought or disturbing thought with a neutral thought. Now the neutral thought, something positive and affirming. Relaxing location. Maybe you look for a very much calm situation where you imagine a situation that makes you very calm, or you imagine a past experience or a place that you have gone to, or maybe sometime imagine that you are at the beach. Probably that is more relaxing to you. So you have to give a neutral thought when you encounter with a racing thought. The other day, Anthony sir was asking a question. He was asking me a question whether a person, when the client is emotionally charged, whether we should advise this. Now we have to. This is what we have to do. We have to make the person calm and quiet here. We have to give the client a neutral thought where the client is able to relax himself. So thoughts can be stopped by practicing an abrupt interruption of a thought. Okay, so maybe sometime, I know it may not work with everyone. It may not work with everyone. Maybe shouting at stop. Okay, so maybe, when we give this exercise to people, when a person is really shouting at, really charged with emotion, out of anger, what we do? We ask him to count from 100 to 1. We give certain kind of exercise. So probably such kind of things can be introduced, maybe from your own experience, what the best works for you, you can do in order to make the thought stop. In connection to this one, the stop card can be used. What is a stop card in CBT? The first one, stop. Stop the thought pattern. Take a breath. Now observe what I am thinking, what I am reacting to, what I am feeling in my body. Next one, pull back. Put in some other alternative perspective. See a bigger picture of the event. Is this a fact or opinion? Think about the situation. How would someone else would see in that particular situation? And now again, the next P, practice what works. What's the best thing to do for me or for others for this situation? You have to find exception or you have to find alternative here. So this is a stop card technique which you can use in your counseling, especially in cognitive therapy or in any other counseling session. Next one is cognitive rehearsal. In this technique, the patient is asked to recall a problematic situation of the past. Okay, now this is cognitive rehearsal. Imagine we ask the client to recall a problematic situation. Now the therapist and the patient both work together. You look at the picture there, two chairs. They two work together to find out a solution for the problem or a way in which the difficult situation, if it occurs in the future. So you have to find out a solution for the same problem, again, if it is going to happen in the future. So bring out that scenario, and then you both as a client and as a therapist work together to sort out the situation if it occurs again. So what is happening here? Cognitively, you make a rehearsal of the same, but from a different perspective to make the situation better. The therapist asks the patient to rehearse positive thoughts instead of the negative one previously, and in order to make appropriate changes to the client thought process. This is called cognitive rehearsal strategy or technique. Next one is validity testing. In this technique, the therapist tests the validity of the beliefs or thought of the patient. Now, when the client presents to you a particular thought, as a therapist, you have to check the validity. I was referring to this point before when we were talking about Socratic questions about evidence. What is the validity of such belief? What is the proof that you have? What is the evidence for that? So the therapist has to test. It can be in different formats, through a Socratic question or other means. The validity of the belief or thought pattern of the patient. So the patient is allowed to defend his viewpoint. Okay, we should not abruptly stop the patient from that, but rather you have to give a space for the client to explore his viewpoint, defend his viewpoint, if he has objective evidence with him. So the faulty nature or invalidity beliefs, if we find, then we have to replace. And that is another way of helping the client to change the thought pattern. This is one of the most used methods, the Socratic question. So Socratic question is a form of disciplined questioning that is used to explore complex ideas, to open more issues and problems, or to uncover assumptions, or to analyze the concept. So it can be very effective and can be used in different means. For example, as a clarification question. Okay, when the client says something, if you want to have a clarity on that particular thing, as a clarification question, you can ask, why do you say that? Or similar clarification question can be formulated. For question about an initial question or an issue, what was the point of this question? Assumption question. When the client says something, now you can ask, okay, you said this. What could be assumed by this statement made by you? Or reason and evidence question. What would be an example? Now you have to ask the evidence or an example for such things happen, as we said about checking the validity. Or you can ask implication or consequence question. What are you implying? What does that mean to you? When something is processed, some thought process is happening in the client perspective, you can ask this question, what are you implying by that? Or what does that mean to you? Now, introducing viewpoints or perspective question, you have to ask such kind of, what would be an alternative to this one? Or what would you do to a different person? Okay, so you have a lot of questions based on where you can ask the client to explore into. When this kind of Socratic question will help the client to think more in a different perspective, or to make more clarity, or to bring out the assumption, and this will be enabling us to identify the maladaptive patterns of the client, the thought patterns of the client. That is another technique that we use. Next is writing a journal. It is a practice of, we know that one, what is writing a journal? Maintaining a diary to keep an account of situations that arise in day-to-day life. So this can be a homework given too. Just like, as I said, a homework can be given in terms of thought record. The same way, we can ask the client to write a journal, because we are not in touch with the client probably during the interval of one session to the other one. So in between, to understand how the client was able to tackle his own life and situations and stresses in life that he encountered daily. So this kind of journal writing will help the client to help the therapist to understand how the client is coping up with the situation. So writing a journal. Next one is guided discovery. This is patients are made aware, so clients are made aware of and assisted by the therapist in understanding how they process information. So here, the therapist has a leading role. The therapist is going to be a guide here. So he is going to guide the client to discover the process of information that is happening in the information processing happening within the client. So this activity allows the client to alter the information processing part if needed, if anything is maladaptive, if anything is negative, thought pattern is negative. So here the client has a lead role. This is what we have to understand. When in other strategies that we imply, the client has more lead role. Here, the therapist has a lead role. But that doesn't mean that we are guiding totally the client, but we are helping the client by taking a lead role and asking the client to move along with. Sometimes this strategy will work for some clients, not for all the clients. There will be clients who need our help. If we need, this strategy can be beneficial. This is the next strategy is called modeling. It is one of the cognitive therapy techniques in which the therapist perform a role-playing exercise aimed at responding in a way that is helpful to overcome the difficult situation. So what here do? When a problem situation is presented, when the client comes with a problem, the therapist enacts or therapist becomes the model, and he enacts how he is going to perform in that particular situation. So by looking at how the therapist is going to do or handle that particular situation, the client will make use of his behavior of the therapist as a model in order to solve a problem. So modeling, that is the another strategy that we use. Homework, as we said, a lot of homeworks are given in CBT. So this is one of the behavioral tasks we assign to the clients in order to achieve the task. So the homework is actually a set of assignments given by the therapist to the clients. The client may have to take notes during the session with the therapist sometimes, okay? Or a review, a audio tape if you are using the session in a video recording or something. You may ask the client to review the session. Maybe you may ask the client to read a particular book, or you may ask the client to write a journal, or you may ask the client to do a regular thought record, or you may ask to have a daily thermometer checkup every day morning when they wake up, and to have a recording. So a different ways of homework you can assign to the client in order to make the situation better, or to analyze and evaluate when the actual sessions are happening. And the role playing, we know what the role play is exactly that is happening. That is the role play is similar to the modeling that we were talking about. to uncover the automatic thoughts or to develop the adequate response and modify the intermediate and core belief. So this is very useful in learning and practicing social skills as well, the role playing in terms of. So this is between the client and the therapist, this work is done. So role playing is another skill or strategy that we use. Next one is aversive conditioning. So amongst the different CBT techniques used by therapists, aversive conditioning technique makes use of dissuasion so as to lessen the appeal of maladaptive behavior. Meaning, the client is being engaged in a particular behavior or thought for which he has to be treated. He is exposed to an unpleasant stimulus. Okay? So the client is given an unpleasant stimulus by which what will happen? The client feels that he doesn't want to repeat the same behavior. It's almost, we know conditioning. We have seen classical conditioning, operant conditioning we have learned. The reward and reinforcement or punishment in that aspect. We have, these are cognitive terms, conditioning. So we know this, when an unpleasant stimulus is exposed to the client for a particular behavior, the client may motivated to stop that particular behavior. Okay, so that is aversive conditioning. So the unpleasant stimulus gets associated with the thoughts and behavior, and the client exhibits an aversive behavior towards that particular thought. Again, another cognitive element, systematic positive reinforcement. We talked about positive and negative reinforcement, rewards and punishments. The systematic positive reinforcement is one of the techniques of CBT therapy in which certain positive behavior of a person is rewarded, and as well as negative behavior is punished. Okay, so a reinforcement system. We reinforce the client with a positive when there is a positive behavior. That will boost them, that will motivate the client. And the self-instructional method. In a self-instructional coping method, the therapist attempts not to completely change the way you think, but rather the therapist helps you to adapt to the coping methods. Okay, such a kind of therapeutic, one of the therapeutic processes called stress inoculation training. What happens there, in stress inoculation training, you are taught how to cope up with such situations. Not abruptly the thought pattern is changed, but rather when you encounter a stressor, you are taught how to cope up with certain strategies will be taught in order to cope up with such kind of situation. That is self-instructional method strategy that we use. And the problem-solving method. Okay, so we know cognitive behavioral therapy, which sees irrational thought process as resolvable. Okay, irrational thoughts are resolvable. Now, it incorporates problem-solving method. After an illogical thought patterns are found, patient must suggest several alternative solutions. What happens here? In the problem-solving method, when you identify a negative automatic thought, as a therapist, you have to ask the client to suggest different alternative solution for that particular thought. Or what are the different alternative perspectives that you can bring in. So this is exactly what is happening in problem-solving method. The negative solutions are weeded out until an acceptable positive approach is discovered. Until the client finds out, discovering a positive approach towards this particular problem, everything else is forgotten or avoided or not accepted. That is problem solving method. Now, next one is systematic desensitization, depending on the anxiety. It is one of the anxiety reducing strategy involving exposure of the phobic child. Especially, this is very helpful in phobia. Okay, or object or particular situation. If we have a phobia, this is very helpful. The child learns to tolerate the feared object by means of a serious step of beginning with the least anxiety producing aspect of the process and ending with the most difficult one. Like meaning you are given exposure to, for example, you have a fear of a dog. Okay, so if you have a fear of a dog, slowly the least anxiety experience in related to this particular phobia, you will be given exposure to. It can be either an exposure or it can be in a way of imagination. So you give the least anxiety producing aspect initially, then you increase the grade and slowly you will be able to remove the fear aspect. So that is called the systematic desensitization. Look at this one. For example, dog, the fear level, then going to the park with a dog walker, or watching a real life dog show, or watching a cartoon dog show, or looking at a picture of a dog. So the fear level comes down. So you are giving an exposure therapy, in vivo therapy to the client. And also, of course, we can use as many a times this techniques we need people who are emotionally charged. We have to let the client to have enough breathing exercise, deep breathing. Help the client, ask the client to breathe from the stomach rather from the lungs. Okay, so many of you know that one, you are already doing this one. So deep breathing and or mental imagery or visualization can enhance other relaxation techniques or be used on its own. Or maybe progressive relaxation techniques also can be used in association with mental imagery or visualization. In related to systematic desensitization, I have already spoken about the exposure and response prevention exercise in vitro and in vivo exposure. The first one, the client imagines the exposure. In the second one, the client is given a real exposure from the lower grade to the higher grade, given on a basis of a fear hierarchy. So that is another technique used. Progressive muscle relaxation. Father Joshi was mentioning about it on the other day while we were talking about emotionally charged patients. And next one is activity scheduling. Scheduling enjoyable and goal-directed activities, pleasurable activities. Walk with the dog, movie with friends, dinner with family, play a game, and so on. So you can ask the client to schedule certain activity which can relax the client over, on a daily basis. So the client has to complete the tasks which are given by the therapist and then have to report, and then the client has to evaluate the effectivity of each activity that are scheduled. And finally, we have the positive affirmations which can be also used during, or we can also ask the client to use this one. I am strong. I have strength. I am successful. I am good at. So whatever the positive affirmation that can boost up the mind of the client, such kind of thought pattern and positive affirmation in life or positive affirmation meditation can be very useful in making the client feel better. So I was not able to give much interaction between. I also have to cover a lot of portion here. So now this is a time for us to have interactions. So this is what I wanted to talk to you in regard to the techniques that we can use. So can we have a few interactions, any clarifications or anything that we need?
Yes, dear friends, we have Father Dr. Rajesh has completed his presentations, the input as such. Now it is time for us to have some interactive session like asking some questions, or you can also narrate some of the scenarios that you might have experienced, or you might have experimented with some of these techniques that already in your life. So such kind of interactions are most welcome. It is through interactions, it is through the questions that you ask, and then the kind of explanations that we try to give, that we learn more. Okay.
Father, how do we, each of these techniques, how do we decide which technique need to be used in a particular situation? Like,
Yes, there are a lot of techniques that I have already explained to you. Am I right? We cannot use all these techniques to a single client. So in the initial conversations, in the way that the case is being presented to you, and based on the aptitude and interest of the client, it is the therapist who has to determine which one will be more helpful. So there are different ways where we can identify, identify the maladaptive pattern, we can make changes in or make interventions in. So what my humble advice to you, every client who is in front of you is unique from his perspective. For the problem that is narrated to you, even if it finds to be as in a universal format, when we look at that from the client perspective, it is a unique case presented to us. So we cannot exactly, I cannot, from an outsider, cannot say this is what we have to use right now. Okay, only if we understand a particular scenario in the proper way, then when we encounter that particular situation, we will be knowing what exact technique will be more effective to handle the client.
To add to that, it also depends on your experience, Anthony. As a practitioner, CBT practitioner, you may not be a kind of a hit success. No, you may not be an instant success. None of us for that matter.
Exactly.
As the dictum says, practice makes person perfect. So over and again, as you go on experimenting with your own clinical practice, as you gain more experience and knowledge about the situations of the client, as you handle so many cases, you tend to be more and more successful, and you form a kind of a clinical eye in you. Okay, you develop a kind of a clinical eye by which you will be easily able to identify what is what. So it depends on how experienced you are in the field. So as you get more and more exposure to different situations and different types of people, and then as you go on practicing, and then when you see that your practice, your service is really effective, and then people are being touched by you, people are being healed by you, and then you get some certain degree of success in your life, that actually reinforces yourself, and then you will develop that clinical eye which will tell you what tool to use at what place. So many tools in your hands. but all of them together to a patient. We have Dr. Mejo here. He doesn't give an injection, he doesn't give a dressing, he doesn't give a capsule all together. He would use which is most suitable and fitting to a particular situation. So that can be developed only by practice, by experience. It doesn't come that easily. Okay?
Okay, Father. Yes.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any other questions that you would like to ask? Rajesh, Shiva, Shivani, Manoj. Yes, anyone can air your doubts or your thoughts, your reflections.
Yeah, things were actually pretty clear, straightforward, and actually.
Very well. Yeah, that is Dr. Rajesh. That is Dr. Rajesh. Very straight and clear.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah. Yes. Anyone else? We would maybe accommodate one or two comments or observations from anyone. We would just spend 1 minute for that, and then if you don't come up with any questions, we would rather wind up the session. Someone has written something. Yes, thank you very much for arranging this beautiful seminar. Congratulations to both of you. Thank you, Sister Shanti. Of course, Sister Shanti also is part of our Samvad group. Next week, she is going to engage classes for our students. Yes, Sister Shanti, thank you very much. Anyone else? Anthony Raj. Yes, Anthony Raj. Very clear. Thank you, Anthony. Yes, I feel empowered. Yes, Raju, you are very strong. I know you. Thank you. Yes. Can we get a few more comments on the comment box, chat box? Manoj. Yes, Manoj. Manoj Karvatkar. Please.
Yeah. So actually, we deal with the student as a teacher. We have to deal with the students, and with common problem of students are they do not concentrate on study, and when they start studying, so sing songs, they will imagine that somebody is playing guitar and something will happen. And very common problem we get that they do not concentrate on study. Parents also meet us and same problem. So which method among all, Father Rajesh has explained it very nicely. So which method will be best for the students as when we think about their studying and all? What do you suggest?
You are asking a question whether what method can be more useful for student category.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, again, this question, students is a very wide concept, right? The student who approaches, in terms of just, if we are talking about the problem factor is about study, right?
Same question. That means parents complain that he is not studying at all, and same type of question.
Okay. Are you talking about a particular client who has come to you?
Yes, as a teacher, we see many students such like that in the class.
A parent comes to you with a complaint. Okay. First of all, you should be able to understand you should be able to give a space for the student to explore.
Yeah.
Okay. Father Joshi?
Yeah, go ahead. And I will add later. Yes.
What I wanted to say, first of all, we have to let the student to explore what exactly the problem he undergoes, what are the issues with the student. Okay, and only then we can understand. Again, same question. What I can tell you, which method I am not in a position to recommend you. This will be more useful to this particular student.
Yes. To add to that, I
Yes.
experience because I have been going to different schools, orientating the teachers as such. I mean, just giving a kind of oriented talk or seminar to the teachers, and then oftentimes this is the kind of a complaint that we get to hear from the teachers. Children are, as Manoj was very beautifully mentioning it, children are interested in many other things, but not in study. They are not focusing, they are not concentrating on studies, but interested in many other co-curricular activities perhaps. They may be good at singing, they may be good at sports, they may be good at many other hobbies and skills, but very poor or not at all concentrated, not at all focused in the study. This is the kind of complaint or kind of concern that I get to hear from many teachers. And then Manoj, if you remember our workshop last year in Agragami school in Alipur, in your school, I had mentioned, see, teachers are life changers. This is one point that all of you who are into education, into teaching profession should understand. Teachers are life changers. You are not simply teaching a subject to the student. You are shaping the life of the child. And then if you can really touch the imagination of your child, of your student, no student will be distracted in your class. I am not putting all the blame on the teachers, but in often times, children get distracted and disoriented when the teacher, sorry for my comments, please excuse me, don't feel bad, when the teacher doesn't measure up. I have seen so many cases in my experience in my field. I have seen so many cases when the teacher fails to measure up, when the teacher is not able to arrest the imagination of the student is not able to concentrate. If you can generate interest by any methods, of course, there are some teachers who would simply, begin with some song, singing or some kind of artistic work, some drawing on the board. Somehow you have to find your own sources to get the attention of the children, and naturally they will get interested in study. If you can make a meaning to them, they are ready to follow you. In many cases, but of course there are exception cases. I would do agree with that. But then in most of the cases, we have to raise our standards. That's the simple thing I can say as a counselor, sometimes giving this kind of orientations to the teachers of the schools. This is a scenario that I have come upon. Does that make any sense to you, Rajesh? To Manoj?
Yeah. Same thing that I just wanted to also, working in an educational institution, this is what I wanted to tell you. We cannot just evaluate a student based on the academic performance just for the grade matter. That grade doesn't matter actually. So there are students, okay, if a parent complains about a student who has a good IQ, that he or she does not study properly, then we have to really sit with the student and have to explore the areas where there are issues. Because no student, there can be areas where the student feels or not supported or unwanted. I can tell you an example where I was in charge of a PU college last year. So I had a student who was really a headache for me. She doesn't study anything, she doesn't get a pass mark for any of the subjects. And I was really worried about the student. So we had the parents-teacher meeting. I had called the parents-teacher meeting and the parents were more stricter than me. Imagine a situation. Then I smelled the foul there. Then I decided to sit with the student. I had a talk with the student. Then I explored a lot of areas, hidden areas where the student does not want to share about. or they do not want other people to explore. And that was really the situation. And I'm glad to say this student had come up with first class mark in the second plus two or a PU that we talk about in Karnataka. So where every student has an area where if Manoj, if you have brought an issue about a student who has a good IQ, I definitely tell you, you have to sit with the student. You should be able to give a space for the student to explore which area is in trouble or where the student has having the issues. So then we have to look into what the therapy that we have to go through. CBT, of course, don't take CBT as a base for everything. Whatever the problems come to you, we should not have a prejudgment that, okay, I have to apply CBT here or I have to apply this technique. But rather, understanding the client's problem, then choosing the best alternative will be really helpful in our sessions.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, Manoj.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Manoj, thank you. Anyone else? Just maybe one more observation or comment or question from anyone.
Father, like I'm just adding on something you said earlier. There is something named as Pygmalion effect. The teacher's interaction with the students. The
Yes.
more interaction, the more the students get encouraged on that. So I just want to add that. Is that something which is proven or is it just a theory?
Father Joshi.
Sorry, I did not hear. I was doing something else. What is that, Ajish?
Yeah, I've heard of something named Pygmalion effect, where the students have more good results when the teachers interact with them. And is this a proved theory or just a concept? I am not sure about it. I've read it somewhere.
I'm sorry, I may not be able to give you scientific proofs. It's not empirical.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this has been the experience of many people.
So that's
Therefore, it holds true. It holds to be true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Ajish.
That's it.
Okay, dear friends, if that is the case, shall we have a bye-bye now? Before we end, allow me to really thank my friend, my younger brother, and our benefactor, Dr. Rajesh George, for engaging this wonderful workshop since last 3 days on account of all of you, in the name of all of you and in the name of Samvad, which tries to humbly making this kind of efforts to bring people together so that we can also go out and help others. So in this effort, of course, Rajesh was a wonderful gift for us actually. And then as Rajesh was mentioning the first day, we have been together since last 10 years or so. We were together there in Manila doing our studies. And perhaps I was the oldest in the group, and then these guys were actually calling me grandpa. So we have that kind of a very personal Rajesh. So we
True. Yeah.
so we have that very personal affinity with one another. We have that kind of a freedom. That's why when I approached him very readily, he agreed, and then he really delivered wonderfully. Yeah. So I am really very impressed, and I'm very proud about him, and then I'm happy that you all benefited from his efforts. Okay, so I remember I had a T-shirt some years back on which there was this caption, change your thoughts and you will change your lives. And I never knew what did it mean, and then I did not even care to know, because we see this kind of writings on the T-shirts and the kind of things. Nobody bothers about that. But then when I went to Manila, and then when I was doing my PhD studies, we had this CBT course, and then I realized how powerful is our thought, powerfully this thought can influence our emotions and our behaviors, and more so our relationships. I am somewhat as a concept, and I as a person, I value more than our individual actions, I value human relationships. There is no harm in shouting sitting in your room. You don't bother. No, I am not concerned about a person simply sitting in his room all alone and shouting. But then I'm concerned when that person has some issue, when he or she relates with our fellow human beings. So CBT is a powerful tool where we can employ this in mending the relationships and enhancing or empowering the relationships. So again, Dr. Rajesh has really taken us miles and miles ahead in this regard, in making us understand the importance and the usefulness of CBT. And then on account of all of you and on my personal account, I thank Dr. Father Rajesh George. His real name actually is Sebastian Tolanikel. That is his baptismal name. Of course, this is so Dr. Rajesh. Thank you very much, and we hope to have you more often in our programs. So, and then again, a word of gratitude and appreciation to all of you, my dear friends. Most of you are known to me. We know each other. We have been working together. We have been knowing each other for a few months at least, and then with some of my friends since last 2 years, we are acquainted with one another. And person like Anthony Raj, we know each other since last 12 years or something. Way back in 2007 or 8 we came together, and then ever since we have been very close to one another. Whenever we get time, we hang out, and then we have our revival of our friendship. Fine. So it was a happy thing to have all of you. Thank you very much. Learn more about CBT, because I always say, my friends and participants, always, I always have this dictum. I'm not going to give you the whole thing. I'm not going to give you a square meal. I'm only giving you starters. If you go to a hospital, if you go to a restaurant and all, you have a starter and then you have the main course. So that way, I give only starters. I only try to create a kind of a taste in you. Now, once you got the taste, it is up to you to pursue and delve deeper into and then make the most out of the occasions and opportunities. So I think I was in a way successful in creating this taste in you, and then continue with your enthusiasm and curiosity to learn more about CBT, and more importantly, apply that to your own self and also to the people who cross your ways. Thus, we will make this world a better place to live in. So thank you very much, one and all, and especially thank you very much, Dr. Rajesh. And then, my dear friends, shortly you will be getting the link for feedback. I will be posting it into the WhatsApp group. The link for feedback will be shortly posted onto the WhatsApp group. Please fill up your feedback, and then once I receive your feedback, within a time of 2 days, you will be getting your e-certificates. So that's from me now. With those words of great appreciation and gratitude to all of you, I sign off. Thank you very much. My dear friends, shall we all unmute our mics, and then shall we clap for Father Rajesh? 3 claps. 1, 2, 3. Please.
Can we also see the video? Turn on the video if you
it will be a commotion. Yeah, let us try. Yes.
So I can see
yes. Please clap. Very good, very good. Mini. Yes, Manoj.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Again. So hopefully we will meet up again. So thank you, Father Joshi.
Thank you. God bless. Bye-bye everyone.
Okay, bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Father.